I've seen a lot of awful console peasant articles, and it still astonishes me how illogical some of these can get. But if there's one article I didn't expect to see, it's a pro Xbox One anti-RTX 3080 one. I had to read this article a couple times because I wasn't sure if it was actually meant to say what it was saying, but it was. From a very, very, very basic standpoint, I can understand purchasing one of the new consoles, but the Xbox One over a 3080. This gem comes from Tech Radar of all places, and before I forget, this one was actually sent to me on Twitter by a viewer, and thank you for that. If you have stuff you want me to take a look at, just send it to me over there. My DMs are open, and it makes my job a lot easier, because honestly, finding stuff to respond to is what takes the longest. But anyways, this is from Tech Radar of all places, and it tells the tale of Hamish Hector, who has both an RTX 3080 and an Xbox One and prefers the latter. And I'm sure he'll have very good, professional, and well-informed reasons for this, since he's a professional journalist and gets paid to know what he's talking about. Right? I want to love PC gaming, I really do. Yet after years of trying to get invested in my Steam library, I always find myself returning to my usual console gaming habits. Habits like paying too much for games, whining about ports. They're brutal habits, probably good to kick those. But when I finally got to try out an RTX 3080 powered laptop for a review, I thought I might at long last fall for PC gaming. Once I hooked up a gaming mouse and a mechanical keyboard I previously reviewed, this would be by far the best gaming setup I'd ever used. There was no way I could resist, right? And it almost got me. Without a doubt, the Lenovo Legion 7 is a superb gaming device, absolutely deserving of the 5-star rating we were awarded. Yet as my review was being finalized and I no longer needed to prioritize testing it, I once again found myself back on my Xbox One X. So why couldn't an RTX 3080 laptop make me love PC gaming? Well, just for starters, the fact that you're prioritizing an Xbox One after reviewing a computer like that kind of makes me question your credibility as a tech critic. Not to be that guy, but also kinda to be that guy. Also, anyone who knows anything knows that judging PC gaming by a laptop is not a smart thing to do. Nothing wrong with laptop gaming, but it's a very different experience than using a desktop. Smaller screen, lower refresh rates usually, it's just not the same. It's a great way to dip your toe in the water, though. A lot of people started PC gaming on laptops, myself included. So I'm just gonna kind of rush through the next chunk of this article because it's basically just a recap of his review. You know, gotta fill the space in the website somehow. No specs on everything. With the power of 7, my usual PC smooth 60 FPS. Horizon Zero Dawn, Deathloop, choose to. On top of that, back. Aha, here we go. What went wrong? If nothing else, I think my issue. There should be a comma there. If nothing else, comma, I think my issue with PC gaming is how isolating it can feel. Especially at a time when in-person life is opening up properly for the first time in over a year, the idea of sitting alone in a room where I've already spent 8 hours and they're working from home can easily feel repulsive. While it isn't much of a change, if I am in a gaming mood, it's much better to seek out the change of scenery afforded by my living room, kick back on the sofa, and boot up my Xbox. So let me get this straight. PC gaming feels isolating because the world is opening up, but playing on an Xbox does not feel isolating. Are you really about to blame lockdowns for preferring console to PC? If you're playing video games by yourself, it doesn't matter what platform you're playing on. You're playing by yourself. Also, you're talking about a laptop, are you not? If you feel isolated in your workspace, take the laptop somewhere else. That's the point of a laptop. In your review, you established that the laptop has better performance than the Xbox One, which, little side note, during that whole spiel about the laptop he mentioned and how great it runs at 60 FPS, that immediately made me skeptical of how much this guy knows about PC gaming, because if you have a gaming PC, especially with the 30 series card in there, I'm not sure why you're targeting 60 FPS. I went back and looked at your review of this thing. You reviewed a laptop with a 165Hz monitor. So why were you targeting 60 FPS? Is it because you don't realize frames and refresh rates are different? Is it because you're a console peasant who stumbled into a job as a journalist? But anyways, you established throughout this article and in your review of the laptop that the PC gives you better performance than the Xbox ever could. And I mean, the One X is almost 4 years old at this point, so it wasn't impressive technically on launch day. So I would hope it's better than that. I just can't get over the fact that everything you've said in this article up to this point has been in the PC's favor, but now because of something the world's opening up, you prefer a 4-year-old underpowered console to a current gen PC. And people wonder why I go so hard on journalists. This is nonsensical. Sure, it's not as mind-blowing as my PC setup, but it wins out every time because while I play, I can relax next to my partner as she enjoys TikTok on her phone. I literally do that with my fiance. I'm playing on PC and she's on her phone. She doesn't use TikTok because she's smart, but this is something that's completely possible. As life gradually returns to some semblance of normal, again, why are you even bringing this? Like, what does this have to do with anything? And I start heading into an actual office rather than working from home. Why would you go to an office to write for a website? I might steadily dabble more in PC gaming, but for now, I'm more content with my last gen console. Jesus Christ. So we're doubling down on the lockdown thing. Great. Because that was such an amazing point to start with. Also, again, if you're playing games by yourself, you're playing games by yourself. Platform doesn't matter. I'm so tired of journalists like this saying absolutely anything they can to play nice with the big manufacturers. Because, like, let's be real, that's what this article is. The dude made a 5-star review of a 3080 laptop, but he didn't want to miss out on future insider perks with Microsoft, so he shat out a half-baked and completely backwards article where he calls his platform of choice last gen. But it's an Xbox, so it's good. Please be nice to me, Microsoft. I am a good journalist. An RTX 3080 is not as desirable as an Xbox One because life is returning to normal. Give me a fucking break. If you're going to take an unpopular stance on something, that's totally fine. But the proper way to do that kind of thing is not to list all the reasons why your opinion is awful and then still not justify why you believe it. It's like if I were to list off all the reasons why a monitor I use is objectively better than a different one, but then wrap up the video by saying I prefer the other one because I'm thirsty. Like, you can't list off reason after reason why a certain product is technically superior to another and then wrap the article up by telling people that you prefer the inferior one with no justification. I'm not going to call you dishonest, but I'm certainly going to call you lazy, and I'm definitely going to call you desperate for clicks, because it's pretty clear that's what this article is. Also, the fact that a site called TechRadar published this is almost an oxymoron. Anyways, I'm thirsty. Toodles.